doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta toss them out. I'm really biting, they just barking out. I'm really riding, they just parking now. Hit street, what to talk about. See the big H when I'm walking out. Yeah.
Hey, that was a game. That was a game. And I know I said last week that was probably the game of the year. This was probably the game of the year, especially with everything that was on the line, how it played out, the drama. Man, had a little bit of everything. Welcome to Athletes Forum Podcast Locker Room. How's everything going? You know the deal. Drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think below. But man, I'm coming to you straight instant reaction, straight from the Paris-Madrid game, and they delivered. With everything on the line for this game, these two teams delivered a classic, one of the best that we'll see or have seen in the European League of Football. And, especially coming off of, the loss Madrid had the week prior, that Frankfurt loss, the dominant performance Paris gave against Cologne. This is Paris' last home game, potentially. So this game gave us a lot. And I'm going to be honest, it didn't play out the way I thought it would. I thought it'd be, a little bit more offensive power, but there's a lot to unpack here. And, let me know what you guys think below, locker room, because there's a lot to discuss. You know how we do. We join in on the conversation. We talk it out. But I got a lot of notes here. I think thinking about this game, you're thinking about it from two different angles. One, from Paris, coming off the road games they just came off of. Their home now. You got to win to clinch the playoff spot. Otherwise, you're going to have a tough one next week against Frankfurt, which they solidified. But it was definitely a sloppy one. It wasn't as dominant or Paris-esque as we thought it might be. I thought Paris, they almost lost it. They almost threw the game away. The everything that unfolded and what do I want to say? The deconstruction of everything that Paris did, they almost gave this game away. I thought defensively, this was a great game from both teams. I thought offensively, Madrid did a good job at not letting Paris get into a rhythm, stopping the run early, putting pressure on Zach, providing some dysfunction up front. Obviously, the center for Paris gets ejected for hitting the ref. They moved Sacramento from right tackle to center. There was a lot going on. To unpack. And I think from the Madrid aspect of it is you still have questions about when they get into these big game atmospheres, are they going to be able to deliver? And, it's fair to say, obviously, they delivered against Fire. They played well, against other teams. But this was the game they needed. And this was the game they needed. They still technically have a shot at making the playoffs. The only thing is that if Munich loses, they need Munich to win because they're not beating a tiebreaker, especially when it comes to points against Munich. They're just too far ahead of everybody. So they really needed this win to kind of solidify everything. But unfortunately, it didn't come through. As we see here, the score was 12-15. But I thought a lot of good came out of this game for one, and going to dive into it. I think when you look at it from Madrid's aspect of it, you get Jalen Embry and you get Iceman back, Alejandro Fernandez, right? Which is obviously great because you need those two back. You see how strong that defense looks when those guys are healthy, which is huge, right? They only gave up 12 points in any other type of game. That's good defensively, and they put a lot of pressure, especially Alejandro Fernandez. It's really good seeing him back and seeing how he performed, especially having that year back in Ryan, seeing how he performed, and he was able to put a lot of pressure on his former quarterback, Zach Edwards. I think offensively, they beat Madrid kind of beat themselves up a little bit. I think, especially on that one big Dwayne Obi run, there's a holding that gets called back. Molina has a touchdown. Duncan throws a nice touchdown pass. And I felt like Madrid was one touchdown away at some point in this game from kind of solidifying them because, again, their defense played very well. I think in the grand scheme of things, obviously you missed the athleticism from Javier Carrasco at that position, but they're probably one elite athletic linebacker away from being an elite defense. But again, this is not to harp on Madrid. They play the game, they just didn't close it out. They didn't close it out. There was fumbles, missed snaps. Um, they it's frustrating if you're a Madrid fan because you had this game, especially after how these two teams played the first time. Madrid had this game and they should have won, but unfortunately they didn't pull it out. Some other notes I had here, they fought early. Again, I feel like they were one touchdown away at some point in the game. I feel like this whole season, even this game, Madrid needs more impact from the surrounding wide receiver cast. Outside Willie Patterson, Mario Flores, the tight end, he does well too. I gotta give respect to him. And then you look at it from Paris. This is honestly kind of a sloppy game for Paris. Paris didn't play their best game, but it was they grinded it out. And they were able to find a way to pull it through. And to that whole team, late down the stretch when Zach needed to be Zach and magical, he was able to pull some stuff out of his bag. We'll see how this team performs in the playoffs. You're either gonna get a Raiders, a Munich, even maybe a Fire team who they struggle with. Obviously, talking about the last time these guys played, so we'll see. But I want to talk about that final drive for Paris. So it's So when we dive into this final drive, you talk about Zach and having to be magical, right? The first throw, hitch to LaRue's overthrow. Usually when there's an overthrow, nerves, quarterback set, whatever. Later down the play, he throws a laser down the seam to Austin Mitchell, who was pretty locked up all day. And credits to Jalen Embry. Obviously, he just came back, but when healthy, Jalen Embry is probably the top cornerback in the European League of Football. American, Euro, homegrown, doesn't matter. Jalen Embry is lockdown material, all the way. What else? Zach had a nice big first run, but that gets called back with a full start. Then there's a 10-second runoff, right? And you're just saying to yourself, like, Paris is literally about to, fumble this game away, give this game away, with everything that's going on. Then after that, you get, roughing the passer by Alejandro Fernandez. Again, bad timing, 21 seconds left. Zach, 15-yard touchdown run, sends it to overtime. We think the game is over. And then what? Field goals. Field goals and kickers have been the story of the league this whole season. DuPont, who's about 50% on the league, misses a field goal. 12-12. And this is why this game was a great game, because it gives you a little bit of everything. 12-12 misses a field goal. Paris thinks they have it in the bag. They don't. We go into overtime. First play. The very first play for Madrid. Fumble. And there was a little bit of chaos. It was face mask. We thought, who was the penalty on? What will happen here? But Madrid essentially fumbles the game away. Paris gets the ball back. And what else? They almost give the game away. Zach gets a little tangled up, puts the ball in the air, almost intercepted in the end zone. Unfortunately, that doesn't obviously go through. Paris, they drive enough. DuPont goes back out there again. He's 50%. So he gets another chance, and then he wins the game. For the Paris Musketeers, which sends Paris into the playoffs. So again, this game gave us a little bit of everything, gave us a lot to talk about. Definitely an exciting one. How should you feel if you're a Paris fan? To be honest, next week versus Frankfurt, I'm resting the starters. Long season, been on the road a lot, resting the starters. We got to get ready for who we're about to play, and that's either going to be the Surge or the Fire, depending on how that plays out. There's a good chance you might get the Raiders, who I personally think I would love to see that matchup. I think the Raiders are the hottest team heading into the playoffs right now. They just won. They beat the Moab Seaman 30-0. But we'll see. It's not going to be an easy matchup. It's definitely not going to be an easy matchup. And there's some things that Paris has to figure out offensively. If there's one thing I think they should do, if there's one thing I think we should see more of with Paris, tote the rock. Give us more power run game. Give us, take a little bit of pressure off Zach trying to be the man all the time. Give us more power run game. Leave Austin Mitchell in the slot because matchup nightmare, especially with his speed. No one's catching him. I think they could. I think it's going to be interesting. I think Paris is going to be a fun team to watch too. Second year team in the European League of Football, and they're making the playoffs. I think one thing to stick out about this year on the playoff run is, we're getting teams like Madrid, we're getting teams like Munich, we're getting teams like Paris, all fairly new teams either last year or this year, making a name for themselves. So that's why this is going to be exciting. But locker room, let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think about the game? What does Paris have to do heading into the playoffs? What should they do next week? Should they rest their starters? And is this team good enough to get out the wild card? That's my question to the locker room. Is this team good enough to get out the wild card and advance and hopefully make a championship run? We'll see.